Okay, for my mini lessons, I am going to focus on the artwork called Sandia by Carmen Lomas Garza, and I'm going to use kindergarten standards for these lessons. My first mini lesson will be social studies and art history, and we will introduce the painting and talk about the background of Carmen Lomas Garza. She was a Chicana native artist, and she paints based on her personal experiences and memories in the Mexican American culture. So we will be able to discuss different traditions across different cultures. The standard that I'm going to use there is describe the diversity of American culture by explaining the customs and celebrations of various families and communities. The students will understand that different cultures have different events that they celebrate, and they'll also be able to discuss similarities and differences in those events across different cultures. For my lesson, we'll discuss celebrations that happen in Mexico versus different celebrations that we use here in the U.S. For example, like Mexico celebrates Carnival and we celebrate Mardi Gras. Mexico celebrates Las Posadas and we celebrate Christmas. And then Mexico also celebrates Dia 16 and we celebrate Independence Day. So discussing the similarities and differences between those celebrations will connect back to my standard that we chose there. The assessments that I'll use is the students will draw a picture and explain one event that they celebrate with their family, and then the students will share one celebration that we've talked about through another culture and some things that they've learned about that. My second lesson will be a language arts and aesthetics lesson. I'll introduce the painting there and then focus on 3 aesthetic questions that will be, what do you think that Carmen Lomas Garza is trying to tell us in this painting? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel happy? Does it make you feel sad? And when you look at the painting, are you reminded of any time specific that you've celebrated with your family? The standard that we're going to use is to use a combination of drawing and dictating and writing to create narratives, opinions, or expository pieces. The objectives, the students will recall something special they've celebrated with their families and be able to tell me about it. They'll choosing from maybe a list of words to describe their celebration or event. I'll share my own personal experience with them here, something that I've celebrated with my family, and discuss how it could be celebrated differently across different cultures. Then each student will use their picture that they've celebrated with their families and use the words that they chose to describe it, and they'll post those at the bottom of their pictures. Then we can share them with the class and compare among different cultures, even in just our classrooms. And I'll use those drawings from the students as their assessments to check for their understanding and recollection of an experience that they've had. And then sharing them with the class will be their second assessment, and they'll tell a story. They'll be able to tell a story based on their picture of the event that they celebrate. For my third lesson, it will be math and art criticism. I'll introduce the painting and we'll focus on a couple questions. I'll ask them what shapes they saw in the painting, what colors stand out to them, if they noticed any patterns that the artist used in there, and how many people they see in the painting. And that will lead into our standard, which will be count to answer how many questions. So they'll be able to count how many people are in the painting and then count how many girls are in the painting versus how many boys are in the painting. I'll show the painting up on the board, and we'll focus on a bunch of different how many questions. I will direct some questions toward the class as a whole and then some questions towards individuals. That way I can see who is struggling or who gets it, and they can take turns answering questions like how many people are in the painting, how many boys do you see, how many girls, how many animals are in the painting, how many windows do you see in the painting, how many bushes are there, how many people are wearing hats, how many people have on white shirts, and so on. Just questions, anything pertaining to that specific painting. My assessments will be, I'm going to use a counting worksheet, and then we'll do counting physical objects that are set up throughout stations in the classroom as my second assessment. My fourth mini lesson will be science and the art project. I'll introduce my painting and we'll discuss what time of day they see in the sky. So I'll ask them to describe what they see, and they'll be able to focus on the time of day there. I'll also let them know that we're going to do their art project in this lesson. The science standard that we're going to focus on here is to obtain, evaluate, and communicate observations about time patterns, so day to night and night to day, and then objects like the sun, the moon, and the stars that we see in the daytime and the nighttime sky. The visual arts standard is going to be understands and applies media, techniques, and processes of two-dimensional works of art using tools and materials in a safe and appropriate manner to develop skills. So they will be able to determine which objects they see in the sky during the daytime and then during the nighttime. And the visual arts objective, they'll be able to create a picture for their art project. They'll choose either to do daytime or nighttime, and then they can choose either blue construction paper or black construction paper, and we'll use all kinds of different materials to create their sky that pertains to whatever time of day they chose. They can use markers, crayons, oil pastels are really cool, and paint, or they can just cut out shapes and use those things to create what you're going to see during either the daytime sky or the nighttime sky. I'm going to create a page to display on the Promethean board where half of it will be daytime sky and half of it will be nighttime sky. And then across the bottom, I'm going to have all the objects that we're going to see in either of those. And they will take turns coming up to the board and move the objects to whichever side of the board you would see them. So you would see the sun, and they would move it to the daytime. The moon, they would move to the nighttime. Clouds could be on either side. Fireworks would be nighttime sky. Stars would be nighttime sky, and so on. And then as each student's coming up to the board for that, I would be able to use that as an assessment to determine if they're placing their objects correctly in the correct location. For my second assessment, I'll assess the pictures that they're going to create for their art project and determine if they put the objects in the correct locations or not, and use that as my second assessment. And that will be it for my mini lessons. Thanks.